You just gotta, because
Nice.
it's really great. Yeah.
Well, you need to
You
tell
started it
all of
again.
I started it again. Yeah. You need to tell everybody, all our viewers, what they should watch, though. There.
Guys, if you're, if you need something new to watch and it's 10 episodes, please go watch Resident Alien. It is amazing and hilarious and amazing. And Alan Tudyk is a gift to all of us. And especially in this show, please, please. Because Robbie Duncan McNeil is so proud of it, and rightly so. Go watch Resident Alien.
I've got to check that out. I haven't seen it yet myself, but they do talk it up a lot on the Delta Flyers, so I'm looking forward to checking it out. But we're here to talk about the 2 stars of the Delta Flyers' other project that you may remember from way back in the day, Star Trek Voyager. Here on the Unready Room, I'm Dan Gunther. That's Brandi Jackola, and welcome everyone here live with us in the comments and checking us out after the fact later on tape delay. I don't know. I'm stuck in the 90s, guys. I don't know. But
it's all good.
Thank you so much for joining us. So, yeah.
Yes, thank you. Oh, and Christopher Hill. Yes, there actually is a sudden and inevitable betrayal, but I'm not going to tell you by whom.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Excellent. Yeah, so we're talking about the episode Tinker, Tenor, Dr. Spy from Voyager's 6th season. And Brandi, you informed me of something moments ago that I'm
Yes,
floored about. I had no idea. Why don't you share with the group?
This was my first time seeing this episode of Voyager.
That blows my mind. I love it. I'm so excited.
I had mentioned in the past that this was, basically seasons 4 through 7 of Voyager were preempted frequently. Mm-hmm. And I did not get to see a lot of the episodes first run. And it was many years before there was a thing called Netflix around so that I could watch all of this stuff without forking out hundreds of dollars for video cassettes of 2 or 3 episodes at a time.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah, I was excited because just the title of it intrigued me because, of course, I know the story of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. So, yeah.
Excellent. So I want to just paint the picture here of you starting this episode and you see that star field and you hear the doctor and he steps into frame and starts singing about his beloved, La Donna Immobile. And my pronunciation sucks, so I'm never going to try that again. But what were your thoughts as you started this episode? Because I'm just I'm so I would love to watch this like it was the first time again.
Well, at first I thought, is he giving a lecture? Is he forcing everyone to come to a lecture or something? Because that's something he would totally do. And then he starts singing. I'm like, oh, well, yeah, because tenor is in the title. So yeah, there's definitely going to be singing. And then when the whole Ponfar thing happens, I'm like, this can't be real. This cannot be real. This is not really happening. It's not like they wouldn't know that Tuvok was about to go into Ponfar. Come on. So it was, from there, it just became hilarious. And I enjoyed every second of it. And then when I found out, he's programmed himself so that he can daydream. Well, this is going to be a ride.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that scene has just become like a classic Voyager scene. And I don't know how many times I've rewatched this episode, just generally as, rewatching episodes here and there go. But I know I've queued up that scene just to watch that scene a few times. One of my favorite openings of a Star Trek episode. And it's hilarious. And,
so great.
Yeah. I don't know what more needs to be said. I'm not going to sing anything there because no one needs to hear that. It's so perfect. Yeah. So yeah, like you said, we learn that the doctor has started to daydream, and of course shenanigans are going to ensue because of that. And we also get our introduction to a new alien race that you had mentioned bears a striking resemblance to some other group out there.
Yeah, well, since the aliens never have an actual name, I mean, yes, they've been called the Overlookers and the Hierarchy
Mhm.
aliens, but no species starts out that way. That's not their real name. So I just call them the Sontarans because they look like Sontarans from Doctor Who. Who also have a very potato-like head and these bulky suits and whatnot. So I started giggling when I first saw the aliens. I'm like, wait, what? Are these the Sontarans, you guys? This is great.
Yeah, the it's funny that you made that connection because just the order in which I watched things. So I watched Voyager first and came to Doctor Who later in my life, and I just never made that connection. They both existed in my head, but when you say that, I'm like, oh, of course, yeah, they look exactly like the Sontarans. That's crazy. I always called them the Mr. Potato Head aliens, which I
Same
apparently
thing.
now which apparently now I have to start just calling the potato head aliens because we've gotten rid of that appellation. So I'm trying to train myself to call them that because yeah, the Overlookers, it's a good name, but it's never actually said in an episode, I don't think. So yeah.
Interesting. Interesting.
Um, I'm seeing lots of familiar faces in the comments here as well. So thank you all for joining. I really appreciate it. Yum Yum Podcast. I think this is the first time I've seen you guys in the chat. So thank you for joining
Wow.
us. I love I love your stuff that you post on social media and just the fact that the Yum Yum Podcast exists. Titled after the famous / infamous Commander Non line from the season 2 finale of Discovery. So take
Yep.
away from that what you will. Not
Yep.
my favorite
It's
line, but apparently theirs.
it's it's always just been one of those things that I'm like, why did you say that like that?
Mhm.
It's always, it's not like I get angry when I hear it, but I always just kind of go, huh. Anyway, that's
Mhm.
just me.
um, well, speaking, this is a weird segue, but speaking of connections to other Star Trek series as well, according to the script, and I don't think it's actually said in the episode, the name of the alien, the name of the Overlooker dude who's actually doing the spying on Voyager, Phlox, according to the script. So there you go.
What? Oh
Uh-huh.
my word. That makes me happy. Because I'm an Enterprise man.
Absolutely. As rightfully so. Good stuff. Good
Yeah,
stuff.
absolutely. Because, yeah.
So yeah, they're spying on Voyager and he discovers he tunnels in and is able to spy on Voyager through the Doctor, but what he thinks he's seeing is not in fact what he thinks is reality is not in fact what he's seeing. He's seeing the Doctor's daydreams, of course. And I don't know. Let's just talk about, I guess, the Doctor's daydreams a little bit because there's some fun stuff here. So, what do you? I'm not going to say your favorite. What is your most memorable daydream of the Doctor's from this whole episode?
Oh, how do I choose? Because they're all pretty memorable. Well, and I understand the whole fantasy about actually getting to be the emergency command holographic program. And so a lot of his fantasies revolve around that. But I think the most memorable one is when they know that that's what's happening to him and now he can't control it. It's happening whether he wants it to or not. And so they are in the holodeck seeing his daydreams and he's painting Seven like one of his French girls. And she is actually doing really well at not being offended in any way, but you can kind of just see this look in her eyes like, I'm going to kill you later. And then, of course, he loves to have women fighting about him, and a fight happens with the B'Elanna, and she's just like, okay, I'm done here. And my favorite though is just like, no, he needs you more than I
Oh my god!
do. And
Yeah.
you just turn to look and they're telling just going, hi. That's probably my favorite sequence, is that right there.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, the briefing room scene for me is just like everyone getting to act that out, I think is hilarious.
Great.
Um the one thing, just narratively speaking, that kind of bugs me about that whole part where they're on the holodeck is if you watch it and like they're already Janeway's like, "You're sure it's a good idea to be looking at this on the holodeck? You know, they're his private fantasies." And it's like, well, we can figure out which one we can learn things about him and help him. And then Kim calls Janeway and says, Kim to Janeway, you need to come see this. And the next scene is like, she just walks in and they're just like, Kim, I guess his whole thing for calling Janeway down was like, these are ridiculous. You need to see this. And I'm like, dude, that's kind of not cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think Janeway handled it the best out of everybody, really, because she never got, I mean, she was obviously visibly repulsed by some of it, but she never made him feel guilty for it. She never got upset with him. And in fact, when she sees one of his, when things are shifting really quickly and she's seeing something and he's talking about how he just wants to be able to help the people that he loves, to protect the people that he loves. And she gets this look on her face like, I've been a horrible captain. And she makes right on that later. But, that's jumping ahead a lot. But yeah, honestly, would any of us want our daydreams to be presented as holodeck theater? I don't think any of us would feel good about that.
Absolutely.
Not any of us.
Yeah.
So
that moment you mention is one that I think is really key to the episode, and I really like that they do kind of take a beat and focus on that a little bit, where he's getting the award from Janeway and he says, all I've ever wanted to do was to live up to my full potential and so that I can protect the people that I love. And she realizes that, like, there's a bit of rampaging ego about the Doctor. Like that's a part of his character, but that's not all that motivates this. And there is a component, there's a strong component of just wanting to be there for his crew. And she realizes that and recognizes that. And I think that's a really important turn in the episode. And as Marg says in the comments, Janeway began to take the Doc seriously. At the start of the episode, they're kind of rolling their eyes a little bit about the formal complaint that the Doctor has issued, like to Captain Catherine Janeway, Starship Voyager, from, that whole scene. And they're kind of giggling about it. And Janeway's like, oh, I'll handle it. And she kind of brushes him off and says, I'll forward your concerns to Starfleet when we get home. Like, that's a little brutal for sure.
Yeah, I thought that was very unfair, actually. And I thought, that is not a good decision. Not a good decision. Because yes, it may seem like there's hubris behind that, but when you strip away all of the pretense, it really isn't about anything but him wanting to grow like everyone else on the ship and also protect the people that he loves. That's basically the underlying motivation for everything that he does. So, just writing him off like that really bothered me. So I'm glad that she came around on that one.
So another daydream of the Doc's that I just want to highlight because I really love it is when he's in engineering and the warp core, the containment field starts to collapse for simply the reason of Majel Barrett and getting to do the computer voice.
Yes! Warp core breach sooner than you think.
A lot sooner than you think.
Last chance to be a hero.
Get going, Doctor.
So
I would have loved to have been in the sound booth or in the room when Majel Barrett was recording for this episode. There's one other episode in season 7 of Voyager. And now I'm wondering, like, is this one you've seen? Now am I spoiling stuff? But
it's okay.
There's another one where Q's son is on the ship. And
that one I've seen.
Okay. And Janeway goes to the replicator and says, coffee black. Doo-doo, get it yourself. She's just like,
Yes.
I love that. I love anytime they play around with the computer voice stuff. So that was really fun. That
Yep.
brought a smile to my face.
Yes.
Um,
Excellent.
Definitely. So, yeah, we have these aliens are spying on Voyager through the Doctor, but only seeing his daydreams. And eventually, this guy realizes that and suspects that he's in a lot of trouble because they're going to attack in what they call the Type 3 tactical assault based on the intelligence they've gotten from the Doctor. And he's worried about his job. I love, like, that's what it comes down to, is he's going to lose his livelihood. But he also cares about the Doctor. He's started to watch the Doctor and really likes him and admires him and thinks he's, an interesting person, I guess, and wants to keep him from being destroyed. So, you help me out, I help you out. And it's one of those things that, like, on paper might be a tough thing to get into an episode where, the Voyager crew are going to help this guy just so that he keeps his job, and he's going to help them to keep them from being destroyed. That seems like weird, but, like, I like how it works out here. I think it really works well in the context of this episode.
I agree. It was a nice little thing that I didn't really expect. I just thought, oh, these guys are going to fail because they're watching the Doctor's fantasies. And so they're thinking that it's going to be, shouldn't even be worth their trouble, really, because they're so advanced. They've got that photonic cannon, and they destroyed a Borg sphere, and all these things that the Doctor fantasized about. I have to admit, though, that when he goes into emergency command hologram mode, that transformation is really fun. It was kind of really anime. It just tickled me. But I love that this little tech potato head is just like, no, you're really cool, and I think, I don't want to see anything happen to you. So that's why I'm telling you this stuff. It's like, yeah, I am afraid that I'm going to lose my job, but at the same time, I also don't want anything to happen to you. It's just
Absolutely
adorable.
I love the Doctor in ECH mode, especially
Yes.
in his fantasy, because he is like 10-year-old me playing Star Trek with friends on the playground. Like,
Yes.
Indeed. Just doing all the, like, campy, ridiculous stuff. I absolutely love that.
Yes.
The Borg, it's like, your designation is unknown, not for long. Like, stuff like that. It's hilarious.
Yeah. It's really fun when he is owning it. It gets a little rocky when he has to kind of do it for real. It's a little rocky at first. But I don't know if we want to go to that part yet. So, but
we'll
yeah.
get there for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we've got, and of course we do find out that it's because these guys have been spying on the Doctor that they're destabilizing his subroutines and stuff. So it wasn't all his fault, it was sabotage. So, but they get him all repaired, and then of course we get that scene I was talking about where he contacts the Doctor and he thinks, oh, Dr. DeBridge, I'm daydreaming again, better shut me down. But this guy's actually contacting him for this reciprocal help. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, he gives them the phase modulation frequencies so that they can keep from being destroyed by their attack. And so he goes to the captain and he explains everything. And at first they're kind of all dubious, but Janeway does believe him. She realizes certain details don't match up with a daydream so much, and so she trusts him, which is I mean,
bit. She kind of rolls her eyes and says, yeah, okay, do the scan, but you're not going to find anything. And then when Harry does, she's like, oh.
Yeah, well, she could have just as easily ignored him and said, no, we're not doing anything. But she did trust him enough to do the scan, and then everybody was on board after that. And it's always frustrating when, you are not believed by someone, because especially if it's someone that you've known for a long time, and you're really like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? when have you ever known me to lie about something like this or exaggerate or play pranks? And so I can just really feel that coming from the doctor, that frustration and urgency at the same time.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to do a little tiny side discussion here, because that's something about Star Trek that I've always loved. Is, generally speaking, when someone on the crew reports something weird, or that they've seen something, or that, something strange is going on, they're immediately treated as though what they've said is real, and they need to investigate it and eliminate all possibilities before they say, maybe there's something wrong with your perceptions, and now we're going to look at that. But any other show, somebody says, like, I heard voices last night, they're like, whoa, we better get you to a shrink, that's weird. But like TNG, Dr. Crusher, I heard what sounded like voices in my quarters last night, and Data and Geordi are like, well, we ran a scan and we found these anomalies and blah blah blah. Just other shows never seem to do that. And it's one thing, like, growing up watching Star Trek, I always noticed is people are believed. People are trusted with their own senses. And I love that. It's one little thing that I'm just like, that's different about Star Trek, and I love it.
I agree. And it's something I've seen a lot in situations also with children. Like, oh, you're just imagining things, or, oh, this isn't really happening, instead of actually taking the child at their word and figuring out what's going on. And I feel like we're doing damage to our children by not listening to them, by not believing them. And that just breaks my heart when that happens, because there have been times where a child has tried to alert an adult to something that is very, very wrong, and they're just ignored, or it's just like, yeah, it's just your imagination, or yeah, we played this game before. And I'm just grateful that there's Star Trek that we can look to and say, okay, maybe that's not the best behavior. Maybe we should just take something at face value first, investigate it, and then if it turns out to not be what we thought, hey, yay us. But if it turns out to be what we thought, that's got to do something about it. I just feel like there could be a lot less pain and injury and trouble in the world if we just believed people and investigated.
Yeah, absolutely. At least eliminate the possibility that they're telling the truth first. Like, don't just assume that, if nothing else, absolutely. And TJ, I just want to, speaking of playing Star Trek on the playground at the age of 10, I just found my old Playmates TNG tricorder from the 90s the other day. I have that tricorder. I had that as a kid, and it's in some box somewhere in the garage. I love that. That's one of my favorite toys. So thanks. Makes me happy. Okay. So, sorry. I'm just going to highlight this one too. So yeah, that's true. Most of Wesley's stories were the adults trusting his point of view on the matter, which was neat, even if Wesley could be annoying. Absolutely, which is why that bit in Data lore bugs me when nobody believes him about lore. That's like the exception, and it bugs the heck out of me, that episode. So, but yeah, most of the time he's trusted and believed, even though he's just a kid,
Is that the one where he gets tripped up by using a contraction and Wesley points it out? Yeah. I remember that one. Wasn't that another one with the crystalline entity, or am I just confusing my episodes?
Yep, that's the crystalline entity as well.
And he says he says something to the effect of, "It's beautiful, isn't it?" And Wesley's like, "Ah! You can't use contractions. You're not Data. You're not Data."
Yeah. But then what does Picard say? He says, "Shut up, Wesley," in that episode. I hate that. Anyway.
Yeah, I will always hate that. Because that is not how you treat a child in any way, shape, or form. It's offensive and it's damaging.
Absolutely.
So just don't do that.
For sure. Well, let's get back to this episode, because we've got these 3 cloaked ships that they can detect now coming in to attack. But the alien, the Overlooker, contacts the Doctor and says they've made a terrible mistake. They're doing a Type 4 tactical assault now. They'll be randomly shifting their phaser frequencies, and we won't be able to help you out and that kind of stuff. So things get a little bit dicey here, even though Janeway has put the Doctor in command and things look like they did before. He's kind of forced to improvise and think on his feet a little bit here. So that was kind of fun. And the Doctor's nervousness throughout all of this, I think, is terrific.
It is. He really comes into his own at the end, though. And it's so great that the rest of the bridge is ready to just play along. Even Tuvok. Because, you know, he was basically, the Doctor had to trust everyone to actually keep this farce up. And so when things aren't working and they're hitting him, and Voyager has found a weakness in their phasers and tries to exploit it, but they just hit him harder. And that's when he says, you know, to arm the photonic cannon. And we're like, come on, Tuvok. Are you going to do it? Come on, Tuvok. And so he does, arming the photonic captain. And I just love that.
I do love at the tactical station, because Tuvok and Chakotay are standing next to each other. And there's a moment of silence, and Tuvok just kind of glances slightly at Chakotay, and Chakotay goes like this. Just like,
yep.
Yeah, do it.
Just do it.
Arming the photonic cannon, and one eyebrow shoots up.
Yeah,
it's terrific.
and I can't remember the exact wording, but I really loved what the Doctor said. You know, he's like, Borg, this, that, you're all the same, you're just bullies. And I thought, yeah, he's nailing that. That's absolutely true.
That's what I kind of love, is the beginning. He's kind of playing the role, and I don't know how to put this exactly, but he's playing the role as Janeway is instructing him to, and rightfully so. That's her place. She should be doing that. But it's not what the Doctor's good at. You know, he's kind of just like being the Starfleet captain, and it's like, they won't get what they're after. You won't get what you're after. Sorry.
Yeah.
it's so awkward and so ridiculous.
It's so awkward. Yeah, I was at that point just like, stop listening to her. Just do your thing.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Where he succeeds is where he says, no, okay. Like, we need to do this my way. We need to bluff these guys and act with bravado, because, you know, the negotiating that Janeway wants him to do, that's all well and good. And that is the Starfleet way and what you're supposed to do in that situation. But that wouldn't have worked in this case. Like, they had the tactical upper hand. They were probably going to take Voyager. But the Doctor saved the crew by doing the Carbomite maneuver, basically, like bluffing his way through it.
Yes, he pulled a Kirk. That. He pulled a Kirk.
Yeah.
He bluffed, and because of this erroneous information that had been given to Head Potato Head by Tech Potato Head, they knew that there was a photonic cannon, and so he was able to just make that work. So I love that he finally just stopped listening. There was nothing else to do at that point, and nothing to lose, because if what he did didn't work, they were going to get boarded, and they were going to get boarded anyway, no matter what else happened. If his bluff worked, he saves the day, and it works, and he saves the day. Not just the ship, but the crew, you know, because heaven only knows what they would have done with the crew. So, you know, I'm not saying they would have done anything nefarious, but, you know, they could have put him off on a planet somewhere where they systematically dismantled the ship. You don't know. They wanted to strip it of its resources. So.
So yeah, that's that all gets settled, and the Doctor, like we said, saved the ship and saved the crew. Now, there's a bit at the end that I've always been just slightly disappointed in, because I thought it was one thing, but it actually turned out to be another. The Doctor, as an emergency hologram, has never had a rank. Like, he's just, you know, basically, if he has a rank, it's crewman, because that's the pipless rank in the Star Trek, whatever. And at the end, he goes to the mess hall, and everyone's cheering. Says, "Oh, don't worry, this isn't a fantasy. This is reality. We're celebrating you." And they're all in their dress uniforms. And Janeway takes a small little thing from Kim, who puts it in her hand. And I remember when I first watched this episode, when it first ran, I was like, "Oh my god, she's making him an ensign. Like he's gonna have a little pip, because she's got this little tiny thing, but it's the Starfleet Medal of Commendation, and sticks it on his uniform there." And that's wonderful. Like it's great. It's a nice little moment, but just like the size and shape of it when he's handing it to her, I thought for sure he was getting a rank, and I was so sad that he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway.
Yeah. But she also told him she was going to reconsider his proposal for the emergency command hologram.
Mm-hmm.
And he does get that kiss on the cheek from Seven, who immediately states it was completely platonic.
Don't
not going to
me
pose
to
for you.
Absolutely. And again, talking about season 7, and hoping I'm not spoiling this for anybody in the chat who hasn't seen it, or you yourself, Brandi, but we do know that the emergency command hologram does become a thing that is featured in Voyager at some point. When it's activated, we don't get the little zip, 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 zip pips appear.
Come on.
Can't make him a real captain. But the ECH is a thing that we'll see again. So that's kind of cool. And this time in reality, not just in the Doctor's fantasies. So I did like that bit of continuity, that it does carry forward from this episode, that recommendation is taken seriously.
Yes. And I appreciate that, because, again, I felt like Janeway was a little too quick to dismiss his, well, the way that he put it was demands, but I don't think that they were demands so much, because it was true. I mean, he is at this point a sentient life form. He is aware of his own existence, and he is thinking on his own. He is expanding his programming and learning what he likes and doesn't like. I mean, he is, for all intents and purposes, a person and should be treated as such. And I found it interesting that in season 6, they're still not there yet. I'm like, this has been going on since season 1. Come on, you guys.
Mm-hmm.
It's just weird to me that it was carried on that long.
Yeah, it's definitely, and I mean, we'll see some progress in season 7 of Voyager and that sort of thing, but it's a thing that keeps coming up for sure. And I would have loved to have seen a continuation of that in some sort of Star Trek that took place after Voyager in the 24th century. And I was kind of waiting for it to be a thing in Picard a little bit with the with
all those holograms.
Yeah. Still, if they've banned synths, what are holographic? What's the state of that right now? I don't know. There's the Index at the Starfleet archives. She didn't seem sentient to me, but she might have been. I don't know. They do still use holographic AI, or I don't know, but interesting.
Or is it like programming a holodeck character with all of the emergency holograms on La Serena? Because they each have very different personalities and don't really deviate from those. So maybe it's just like, a holonovel character, so to speak. Not really sentient or sapient, but with a personality.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't know. But I find it interesting that because it's holographic, it's somehow okay. But if it's an actual, something with flesh that is tangible, it's different.
Yeah, and I even wondered this back at the time that Voyager was on the air. What's the difference between the Doctor and Data? Not much. Data has a body that's solid, I guess. That's it. That's the only real difference, I think. Is
Data can be turned off.
Yeah, absolutely. Is the legal difference the fact that the Doctor was created by the Federation and Starfleet and Data wasn't? Like, is that where the
Hmm.
legality comes in? I'm not sure, but
I know.
you know, because I could see that
Interesting.
being a ruling. Because the ruling in Measure of the Man was that Data's not property, so
Hmm.
the Doctor is probably still considered property because he's created by Starfleet and maintained by them. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, and I can see that if he had just remained the emergency medical hologram, but he grew beyond that.
Hmm.
This is something that has never really been done before. This is something that's never happened. And yes, it started out of necessity, but it continued because he wanted it to continue. He
Yeah.
wanted to fulfill his potential. So, how do you quantify that as
Mhm.
far as whether he's a person or not? How can you say he's not a person, and what's your argument for that?
Yeah,
So, that would be a hard thing to argue in a court.
absolutely. And we do see that those arguments made in a later episode of Voyager in a court as well. But the ruling by the judge isn't so far reaching as we get in Measure of a Man.
Hmm.
The court does refuse to name him as a person, but does name him as an artist with all of the rights given to an artist under the law. So it's still a really fine line there, which is interesting that they don't go that far, but they do extend some rights with the open question to be pursued in the future as well. So,
That sounds a lot like, I don't know, slavery. Sounds a lot like that. Like, oh, slaves are only 3/5 of a person, so we don't have to treat them like real people.
well,
That's what it sounds like.
and in the episode that I'm referencing, author, the final shot of that episode is of like 100 EMHs working in a mine. Like they were
Hmm.
definitely
Oh, I
making
remember
that.
this. I
Yeah.
remember this. Oh, yes.
Hmm.
Yeah, that episode bothered me a lot.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite episodes, but yeah, it is.
Well, I mean, it bothered me for a good reason. I'm not
It's meant
saying
to.
that I
Yeah,
didn't like it. It's meant to bother me. So,
absolutely. Yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
Hmm.
Um, so I also just have the Memory Alpha page open for this episode, and I'm seeing a line here that's apparently in background dialogue and engineering during the warp core breach scene. And every time I watch this episode, I forget to listen for it. But apparently, somebody in the background yells, "Forget the children, save yourselves!" during that scene. I'm just so
Actually,
sad that I missed that.
I had the subtitles on, and I think I
Oh.
caught part of that. And I'm like, did they say something about save yourselves? I is always watch Star Trek with the subtitles on, because you will hear things and you will see dialogue from the background that you may not necessarily hear clearly. So
Mhm.
it's very informative.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very.
Um,
Forget the children.
that kills me, and I'm like, oh, I need to go back and listen for that again because I keep
How
forgetting.
how many children are there on board? Oh, yeah, one. I mean, at that point, is there more than one at that point?
It depends on who's writing the episode. Sometimes it
Okay,
seems
because
like
there's
it's sometimes
Naomi.
yeah, Naomi is basically it. It's sometimes implied that there's more, but then it in other episodes they outright state she's the only one. So I
Hmm.
don't know.
Well, it seems to me like you're lost in the Delta Quadrant for 7 years. I mean, there's gonna be some people getting it on,
Mhm.
but maybe birth control is different in the 24th century. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Apparently, there's only one child ever born on the ship, and she was conceived before they even left. So, no, nobody gets it on that ship. No, I'm just kidding.
No, they totally do. You know it. You know it. Nobody
Hmm.
but a Vulcan's gonna go 7 years without.
Another favorite line of Janeway's is he does the hands very well. Her delivery of that is just perfect.
there's that look on Seven's face. It's like almost half admiration and half like, what the hell? It's a very interesting look to pull off. It was very well done. And just that the way she says that, the way that Janeway says that, almost impassively, is just, yeah, that was a great moment.
There's some really great deliveries by people in this episode. Yeah, excellent. I don't know. Is there anything that we haven't talked about with regards to the episode that you or anyone in the chat would like us to bring up? Because that's pretty much it. I like that we got the little discussion of holographic rights, because I think this episode is a little deeper than some people would give it credit for.
Yeah, I agree. Also, well, and this is something that is tangentially related, because Garrett Wang and Robbie Duncan McNeil have been telling this story for years, and it actually is untrue. But they basically would tell the story about Robert Picardo wanting to sing opera on Voyager and being persistent about it, instead of, the first time being turned down and then just keeping at it and saying, no, I want to do this, I want to do this. None of that happened. Because Robert Picardo never asked to sing opera on Voyager. He is not an opera singer. He is not a trained opera singer. And so when they have that episode in season 3, which the name of it escapes me for the moment, and I hate when this happens. Thank you. It is the Swarm. Yeah. Thank you. And he's on the holodeck with the prima donna, and they're doing this opera. That's not him singing. That's not actually him singing, because he just wasn't. He didn't feel comfortable doing it. It wasn't good. What they tried to do, because he's not really a tenor, he's really more of a baritone, and it just didn't sound right in the baritone range when they dropped it down, and so they had to put it back into tenor range and have somebody else dub it. And he had never asked to sing opera. He went to the producer saying he thought it would be interesting if the doctor got interested in opera, was listening to opera, becoming enraptured with it, etc. That was the whole thing. And he didn't keep going back time after time after time. It was one conversation. They said, well, we'll think about it. And he didn't think about it again until they're like, okay, so you're singing opera. And he's like, wait, what? I don't know how to sing opera. So, and that's out of Robert Picardo's mouth, because they had him on the Delta Flyers for that episode, and he told the story. He's like, no, that is not what happened. So that was fun.
Yeah, that's fun. I'm very much enjoying the Delta Flyers podcast. As we talked a little bit about before we started recording today, was that they do get a lot of things misremembered and that sort of thing, and when it happens, they are the first to admit it. Like there have been things coming up in the episode where Garrett is like, I've been telling this story at conventions for years, and I got it totally wrong, it's actually this, and now that I'm rewatching it. So they admit it, but there are still some things that, at least where I'm at in the podcast, which I think I just listened to the Swarm or the one after that, and I'm like, no, that's not right. That, there's still a couple things that but
yeah. Well, they had a big one with Remembrance, because not Remembrance, Remember. I want to call it Remembrance, but it's Remember, and that's when B'Elanna is being given the memories of this Inaran that's on board. They're all telepathic, and she finds out that they have a very Nazi-like history, and she wants these memories passed on because they've just buried this. But there was a guest star. I can't remember her last name now. Her first name was Athena, the actual actor, and she was the character was into Harry, and Harry was into her, and it was awkward and weird. But Garrett had a crush on her. He had a crush on every female co-star, and he's the first person to admit that. But they've been making a joke for years when she would this whole thing that she did with this hand movement and everything is the Aquitarians would never do that. And that isn't even the line or how she delivered it, because it wasn't the Ocritarians, it was the Inarans. And so when they came to that part in the show, they're both just
I'm
like,
excited. I've been wondering about this because I think that's the next one I have to listen to, and I've been hearing them build up this story for like the last 3 or 4 episodes, and I'm like,
oh yeah,
no, the Ocritarians were from the episode The Shoot. This is not that, like, so
yeah. And
I'm
it
excited.
wasn't just them. It wasn't just them. It was the entire cast that did this. The entire cast. They did this to Garrett for years. So yeah. I don't know who said it wrong first. It probably was Ethan Phillips, but they're not sure. It could have been Tim Russ. Nobody is 100% sure anymore. But yeah, there was no hand movement, and she was very comfortable. She was very, what's the word I'm looking for here? Natural in her delivery of the lines. Like, no, you're lying. The Inarans would never do something like that. So, yeah. Excellent. And funny note on that episode, which is unrelated to this episode, but because we're talking about that episode for a moment, because I brought it up, that episode featured a guest star that I recognized immediately by the name of Charles Eston, who is also known as Chip Eston, who used to be on a lot of episodes of Whose Line Is It Anyway, was also on the show Nashville, ended up going into having a country music career because of Nashville. So funny.
That's funny. I never made that connection, and now I have to go rewatch that episode because I know of who you're talking about. And I'm wow, that's crazy.
That's good. That's good old Chip Eston there, and remember playing the guy that gets murdered because Daddy brainwashes his daughter. That also had the incomparable person in it. It's so great. It's a great episode. It's hard, but it's a great episode.
It's it is a really good episode for sure. Yeah. I haven't watched a lot of like season 1, 2, 3 Voyager in a long time. It'd be good to revisit it. I'm following along in the podcast, but like I know the episodes so well, I don't really have to rewatch them. But it has actually been a long time since I have. So
yeah, I haven't seen them all, and so I'm starting to get into territory where I just don't remember. Or I haven't seen these episodes. And so it's like seeing them for the first time for the most part. And awesome. It's really, it's a wonderful thing to have that. And I'm almost sad to ever get to the end, because then I won't have any more new episodes of Voyager ever again.
Aww.
But it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. Now I'm at Future War Part 1. Was it Future War? No.
Future's End?
Future War? Future's End. Thank you. Future's End. Future War is a bad sci-fi movie that has been covered both on Mystery Science Theater 3000 and Riff Tracks. Terrible movie. Sorry that I conflated the two. My apologies to everyone.
That's funny. Marg, let's do author or another doc ep. You know what? Author is on the list for the poll for next week. Thank you for that.
Excellent.
You jumped the queue.
Woohoo! Nice
so thank
job.
you so much for that, and for the suggestion. It is on the list of the episodes that we'll do next week. So having said that, let's just throw it to the commenters now and say the next 3 episodes or films that get listed will be the other 3 on the list, and I'll make the poll. So choice number 1, author. Thank you so much for that.
And now we're waiting. We're waiting with bated breath. Waiting for this, for the chat to update.
So, and again, keep in mind, sometimes the
Tholian Web.
Hope and Fear. Hope and Fear and Tholian Web. Okay. So Hope and
Insurrection.
Fear. Oh, that's an interesting thought. Okay. Tholian Web and Insurrection. Okay, we have our 4. Okay, so the choices for next week. That was really fast. Choices for next week are Voyager's author. So that's the one where the Doctor writes a holonovel, not based on the Voyager crew. And Hope and Fear, excellent season 4 finale of Voyager, where Starfleet has supposedly sent the USS Dauntless to help get the Voyager crew home. So that's exciting. The Tholian web from the original series, where the Enterprise gets caught in a Tholian web.
William Webb.
Yeah. And Star Trek Insurrection. Interesting suggestion from Stefan there. So, the third TNG era film, in which the battle for paradise has begun, if you believe the movie poster. So there you go.
Sure. The thing I remember most about it is it has Donna Murphy in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's been a good long while since I've seen Insurrection. A good long while.
Yeah. I think I watched it last year at some point. Yeah. It's a movie.
It's a movie, yeah.
It's not the worst TNG film, in my opinion.
Well, it's not even the worst film of anything, really. I mean, I've seen far worse films, believe me.
Yeah. It's not a bad film.
It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine. And maybe at this point in my life, if that one wins, I don't think it will. But if it does, I think at this point in my life, I'm going to have a different opinion of it than I did when I first saw it or when I watched it later. So, because that's the wonderful thing about Star Trek is every time I rewatch something, I have a different experience, which you wouldn't think would be true, but it is.
Absolutely. Well, I will get that poll going on the @PositivelyTrek Twitter. So go check that Twitter out if you're not already following @PositivelyTrek. I'll have a poll running for about 2 days between these 4 episodes, and it's going to be in 2 weeks again. So I'm making this a bi-weekly thing. Is bi-weekly twice a week or every 2 weeks?
Well, it used to be twice a week. But English. Now it means
English.
I know, which is like when people say bi-monthly, that means every other month to me. But now it means twice a month. And it's just like, make up your minds, guys. Just make up your mind.
Okay.
So in a fortnightly, let's call it fortnightly. That way no one's confused.
I love the term fortnightly, by the way. Thank you for that. That makes me so happy. So the Unready Room is now fortnightly. I love that. And so in 2 weeks we will cover one of these episodes or film. So join us then. And Brandi, where can people find you when you're not gracing this channel with your lovely presence discussing holographic rights?
Holographic rights and potato head aliens. It's the Sontarans, you guys. You can find me on Twitter at Brandywine12, which is the best way to keep up with stuff I'm doing. I don't necessarily post a lot of stuff, but when I do, it's usually about a show I'm doing. So I'm obviously you can see me here on the Unready Room. You can also find me on my Star Trek Discovery podcast, What the Future Holds, with my friends. Well, with Dave is my friend and my husband and friend Dave, and our friend Christopher D. Littlefield. And also Boldly Go, Strange New Worlds podcast with my friend Suzanne, who is in the chat and made one of the suggestions that's going to be on the poll. And you can find both of those on Anchor, or just look at my Twitter when I post about it. We're also on Twitter with both accounts. One is at Boldly Go Pod, and the other is at WTFH Pod. So, yeah, WTFH can mean another thing, which I often think of often. So
you're not the only
just think about it, guys. Yeah, just think about it, guys. And also I do a podcast with my husband and friend Dave, which is the Dark Corner Podcast, which you can find at darkcornerpodcast.com. And we recently just did an episode about bands that we like and the origins of their names, which has turned into a very interesting conversation about a lot of different things and tangents. And Vedic Assembly is another one of my podcasts. It has been on hiatus for a while and hopefully will be coming back in the near future. Same thing with Infinite Trek. So those are all the things that I'm doing currently at this time. Currently and at this time are the same thing. Sorry, that was redundant.
You also said it twice. So it was redundant, and you said it
Son
twice.
of a motherless goat. Sorry, guys.
So WTFH is that's got to be the famous volunteer organization, the Wisconsin Tourism Federation Helpers, right?
Absolutely. That's the second thing I think of when I hear
Yeah.
WTFH.
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you can find me here, of course, on this channel. It's been a little quiet lately. I'm working on doing some more videos and that sort of thing. Unfortunately, I'm going to be gone like half of next week. So I'm trying to get everything back running again. But meanwhile, the Positively Trek podcast is going strong, and our 100th episode is coming, is our next episode, and it's coming out on Monday, a day earlier than usual, because coincidentally it falls on the week of First Contact Day. So we decided to just move it up a day to come out on First Contact Day. So we have a special episode where we talk about the film Star Trek First Contact with another YouTuber, the Irish Trekkie, Damien Devlin, who is hilarious and wonderful, and I love him. So happy to have him on the show. And other than that, you can find me on Twitter at Kurtrats. And really excited. Go download episode 100 when it drops, because I'm so happy that we made it to 100 episodes. And yes, absolutely, do not forget your First Contact Day salmons, folks.
I am allergic to fish. I'm allergic to fish. Can't eat salmon. I'm so sorry.
Well, I will eat tuna. I'll have two helpings for you.
I can eat tuna without vomiting. That's the only one. So, because it's the chicken of the sea, you see.
Okay, well, First Contact Day tuna, then. That's
that's as far as I can go with that.
Awesome. Well, I will see you all in 2 weeks on our next Unready Room, and don't forget, go check out at Positively Trek for that poll about the next episode or film that we're covering, and we'll see you next time. So until then, as always, live long and